Hello and welcome to race 2 of the 4th series of the Dirt Racing series. This week we're going for a team time race, so it's a new variation. Instead of a team time trial, that was voted for a change, and we're trying out a whole new type of race today. So the deal is it's going to be the 4th rider over the line for each team is what counts, and it's just whatever their position is versus all the other teams is the score. So going and having a look at where we are for this week, we're going to be looking at the Platinum 1.5 on Mount Hyde in the EMEA Central region, and then we're going to be moving on to the Gold 1 in the EMEA West region. So looking at where people are from last week. So in first place at the moment, we've got Down and Beastly, one of the dirt teams, combination of Down and Dirty and the Dirty Beasts, leading up the way with a fairly comprehensive win last week, 405 points, versus Cryogen BMC in second, 341. Wow, 339 points in third place. We've got Galaxy, Hisp, L'Equipe Provence, What Fabric, Team SZ, Treton, and Sisu to round up the rest of the league. So we've got 10 different teams in this league, up to 80 riders taking part in any stage. Swap over and take a look at some of the individual scores before we get started. So leading the way, we have a couple of those Down and Beastly riders, Snowy Pruitt, grabbing some strong sprint points as you'd expect, and with Ali as well, both getting good sprint points and also finishing near to the podium. I believe Ali in third place, Snowy in fourth, most likely, across the line. It's a real strong result from them. Got Christian Spielar from Treton in third, and Magnus Burr from Cryogen BMC in fourth, very strong rider, and Kilian van den Biel, another strong rider, formerly of BZR, racing for Wow A1. So what's the course this week? So on the Knickerbocker Claw horse, it's a lap and a half, finishing at the top of the KOM. Those who saw earlier, there were a few variations, but we will definitely be on top of the KOM for the end of today's race, which changed it slightly, but for the whole part the best tactic earlier was just to kick on hard and try and break the opposition right over the top of the KOM. As you can see, it's going to be a 34.42 kilometre race, so it is long. There's quite a decent distance to cover after the first KOM, but I think like the first KOM is really where teams get broken. We saw some early attacks in the previous races, but realistically you want to be saving your legs for the KOM, and then if you're wanting to kind of go long, we see a lot of variation with the new category system and people's 20-minute fitness. But I'd say if you want to go long, do the hard work and try and split people after that first KOM when they're tired, rather than risking blowing yourself up before it. So you see their points, but it is just going to be a simple case of league points today for the 4th rider over the line for each team. We'll take quick look at the profile at the bottom. You should be able to see it. Generally, it's a very up and down undulating course, which leads itself into kind of plenty of opportunities for attacks, plenty of opportunities to try and break things up, and a lot of hard work throughout this race. Also, you've got the huge feature of the KOM in the middle, but other points to note are Harlem Hill, which is a section around 3 kilometres in. It's a tough climb, about a minute and a half effort. You'll see some of these riders stay at 7-8 watts per kilo for quite a big portion of it. Really try and do some damage. Then we have a couple of long gentle climbs, long downhill into the KOM. You can see what would be the sprint segment if that was taking part today, as a marker if you're just about to hit the KOM, and then up the KOM. The KOM itself comes in 4 sections in this direction. You have the kind of tunnelled slope at the start that's about 6-7%. Definitely can do some damage, but you'd expect most riders just to hold on through there, not doing crazy pace on the front. Then we get into the KOM segment itself, where we have 3 distinct punches. The first 2 on the KOM itself, the real kind of make or break sections. The first one tires people out. You don't see people totally falling off, but the group splits up a little bit, where it gets up to 13-14% for parts, and then becomes the real big test as we start to take some of the bends. We have this long extended section where we get up to above 10% twice, and that's where it really breaks apart. People need to be doing red numbers there, resting on the flatter parts. That's where we're going to see it all falling apart, and where teams have to start rethinking about where their 4th rider is. Do they need to drop back? Do they need to push on? So jumping onto the live stream, we've got a minute to go to the start. You can see the current leaders, Down and Beastly. In the Merc kit, the pink one at the front, we've got the SZ kit. You can see the Cryogen kit on the right of the SZ kit. Galaxy kit right next to me in that lovely purple. I'll see if we can find out some of the others, where the Treton kit is for the rest of our podium teams. Because this is a new category, it is a new category, but also a new style of racing. It's combined really nicely, and that we have such variation in abilities here. Some of these rides are going to be far punchier, some of them are going to be better at just these long drags, and so you might see a huge variety of tactics, which made this race this morning so interesting. And I think it's definitely one to watch out for and possibly consider for future use, as it's a real gamble. Do you keep pushing? Do you try and work hard, or do you sit in, see what happens ahead, and stay with your fourth rider? So as you get out the gate, so a lot of people pushing hard earlier. Whether we'll see that in this one's yet to be seen. Lots of people have done their recon, seen what happened earlier. But one key point that I think teams should be more aware of that didn't happen earlier was the attacks afterwards. After you're coming on that downhill on the KOM, lots of teams started attacking and pushing the pace, despite only having 2 or 3 rides in their front group. And no one wanted to drop back. It took about another 5-10 kilometres after the bottom of the KOM for teams to realise that they needed to drop back and support their other riders, or at least to kind of fully commit to that and realise that those riders weren't getting back on. I think that's such an important stage to realise, you get over that KOM, reassess, see where your other riders are. So we've got one of the Watt Fabric riders just pushing up the road, and the Treton team mentioned earlier, they're just in the yellow kit, the fluorescent yellow kit, sorry, not the Treton, the Wow Wow team, which are made up primarily of Belgian riders, former BZR rides, I believe. See the Watt Fabric rider dropping back in. We've got a couple of Cryogen towards the front, a couple of the Wow Wow. See a lot of those Down and Beastly riders just sitting towards the back, not doing any work. Do seem to have lost one towards the back. One of the Galaxy riders just struggling a bit. Might have had a slight dropout. And these opening stages are all about conserving energy, in my opinion. It's possible to push hard, do a lot of work, possibly damage people before the KOM, but you have to be very confident. As you see Sev from Hiss pushing out, you have to be very confident in your own ability and ability to stay away over the climb. So I'll stay at the front, shall we say, over the climb, to really make it worthwhile risking. So looking at the makeup of the riders signed up, a lot of the HISP riders are very strong, kind of long distance riders. About 3 of them above 5 watts per kilo for 20 minutes, so expect them to try and do something, maybe push the pace. But the real key is where that 4th rider is, and for them, their 4th rider's down at 4.5 watts per kilo, so while 3 of them might be able to work hard, get away, it's going to hurt their 4th rider, whereas other teams like WoW maybe have a little bit more across the board. So yeah, I'm just having a little bunch ride for the moment. No one's quite making any moves as we set off towards the KOM. Just up ahead at the end of this downhill, we're going to have Harlem Hill. It flattens out a little bit in between before we get into the steep slopes. You might see riders sitting towards the back and then punching through aggressively at the start of Harlem Hill. It's going to be a key point in this race. It's the first test of who's going to attack on the front, who's going to be willing to push the pace. And while we said earlier, this course is very bumpy, it's going to suit teams who are punchy as well. There's no point having this huge, monstrous 20-minute watt per kilo numbers if you can't be a bit punchy at the same time, because this KOM is all about those repeated punches. It's 30-second a minute bursts, followed by resting as much as you can, and then punching up again. If you can't repeatedly hit 7-8 watts per kilo, you're not going to be with the group at the front towards the end. To mention, one thing to watch out for is being on the front towards this downhill, because the speeds get very high. It's quite easy just to roll through to the front and lose all that speed by being in the wind right at the front. So one thing I'd really recommend riders here is just sitting up, staying towards the back and doing no work on the downhill here. As you turn this final bend, you see it goes instantly to -2.0% for a few seconds. And then back up, you've got to then start pushing early. Give it a little dig and then avoid the front. Hitting the front here at 60 kilometers an hour, you'll see the speed drop instantly. So if you can grab hold of anyone, see there, one rider at 54, 53 after just hitting the front. It's an instant drop in speed. So we approach the start of Harlem Hill. And taking a look back at the back, you can always see it's starting to stretch out a little bit. No one's really going crazy yet. So a couple of riders moving up to see one of the down and beastly riders. It's going to take me a long time to get used to not saying down and dirty. Colin Rame just moving forward. We've got Bowles from L'Equipe Provence moving towards the front, but 6.6 watts per kilo is not really going yet. No one's going to get too excited at those numbers or be getting too concerned towards the back. So at this left bend, it starts to steepen up into that 7-8%, and that's where I start people go. See Killian just ramping it up a little bit, and there he goes, kicking off. It's a measured effort. He's just putting little bursts in, and then sitting up, making sure he's not going off the front, but keeping the pace high. And there he starts sending it again. Strange tactic, he's using quite a bit of energy by repeatedly pushing and then dropping down, but it seems to be working well enough for him. And as we're going over, we've just lost 1 or 2 rides off the back. It's like a Galaxy rider and possibly one of the HISP riders. But again, both teams have plenty of riders still in that front group. It's not going to be too big a concern as the pack just stretches out on the downhill. People resting up. So from here to the line, we've got a bit of a long incline, but nothing crazy, nothing that most of the teams will be particularly worried about. The next main feature is going to be the start of that KOM around 8 kilometers in. People do have to be aware we're dropping off the back, losing a couple of riders. But with the new power dynamics for, there's allegedly draft going all the way back to 20 meters. It might not be as strong as it used to be. It's not a all or nothing. But you see Rayner from Watt Fabric. Another one of their riders. Perhaps Rayner was there dropping back to give him a wheels. Burrett seems to be struggling a bit in 4.5-ish watt kilos. Dropped down to below 4. Now he's not going to be getting back on. So it's going to be another Watt Fabric rider down. Just take a look. I think they've still got 4 in the front group, so it's not going to be a concern for them yet. Definitely something to watch out for. So you see some of the dirt riders just lingering towards the back in classic fashion. Those who'd watched know the race is very attritional. The pace, while it isn't too high at the moment, it's still important to just save as much as you can while you can. Keep the heart rate down. Keep the legs as fresh as possible. See Colin Rame from Dirt pushing towards the front. He's doing a little bit of work. See a couple of the HISP riders there as well. But yeah, no one's really taking charge of this race yet. No one's going, okay, we're going to push the pace. We're going to make others suffer. Just think we'll see probably more post-KOM. Those looking at the makeup of the field and see roughly where rides are. The vast majority of the riders in here are B riders with a couple of low A's in general, but it goes all the way up with a couple of A pluses. Got Lagerman from Sisu, Craig Bowles from L'Equipe Provence, and Romejo from HISP. All A plus riders who can definitely do some damage later on in this race. Following on, looks like we've had a bit of a dropout for a rider. I believe that's one of the dirt riders. It's definitely unideal. See Rob Book seeming to have a bit of a dropout there, which is going to cost him. It's going to be a long way to the finish and not much chance of getting back on here, sadly. It's just one of those fundamental things of Zwift racing. Possibility of technicals, and that's why it's so important that you're allowed to have extra riders. And why this, again, another reason why we love DRS. 8 riders can sign up, but for the vast majority of races, it's the top 4 that count. And so as we watch it today, you know, if you have a dropout, you have 2 dropouts. Someone can't make it because they've got to do something. They've got real life getting in the way, busy at work, kids, whatever it is, and still take part and be competitive as a team. Whereas in lots of other series, you drop a rider or 2, and it's going to really hurt you, especially on things like the team time trial. I think it's one of the things that organisers have taken feedback on with the removal of the team time trial, especially without access to the start system. It's made it a lot more even. Teams that have 6 riders, teams that have 4 riders can still compete with those who have 8. They might be at a slight disadvantage, but it's not race defining, whereas in a team time trial, having 8 riders versus 6 can be defining, let alone 4. Which you see a lot of in these races. So going back to the front, see no one's really doing too much. So as you approach the sprint segment, again, that's not going to be a segment today. So we don't need to worry too much about it. But just taking a look at the stage map, you might be able to see it might be a bit narrow, but just after the sprint segment, we turn left. And that's when we start climbing up. Again, most people might have withdrawal symptoms from this stage and be wanting to push a little bit hard. See Ali automatically kicking 7 watts per kilo then. And then dropping down significantly as he moves forward quickly. Everyone's used to having to treat that climb much harder than it actually is because of the segment. I think it gets in a lot of people's head that it's steeper than it is. You need to work harder than you would if you saw 3-4% anywhere else on the course. So here we go, half a kilometre to go, 500 metres to the base of the climb. I'll be able to see it on the minimap just around the corner. We start off with this gradual tunnel where things just start to spread out a little bit. It only goes up to about 6-7% in there. Nothing crazy, but it can still do damage. As you see, the speeds drop down from about 43-44 kilometres an hour leading into it, down to mid-30s, low 30s. So here we go. This is going to be the key feature. It's going to be important to see who wants to do the work, who's pushing on, and who's going to time it right. See on the Quips riders already at the front. Galaxy rider going as well. It's important just to stay towards the back though in these early sections where there's plenty of draft. See Van Kutsum that I'm just following here from WoW, just not doing too much to begin with, staying in the 3 watt per kilo range, then gradually moving up to 5.8. See De Silva from Hiss pushing off the front. Just going maybe a little bit too hard too early. That's one of the important things here. Is going individual up the road isn't going to help anyone. It's about team pushes off the front. If just one guy goes, anyone can let them go. It doesn't affect them. It's all about that 4th rider. So if you're going to push the pace, you need multiple people working together, going hard. See some of the strong A pluses and A's there moving towards the front. John Poole and Chris for the dirt riders. A lot of the WoW riders getting towards the front again, getting ready to push. We hit the 15% section. You see the red numbers starting to light up at the front. People getting up to 10 watts per kilo. You see Killian van der Biel here, keeping a nice consistent pace on the front, recovering well in the flatter section, executing this course pretty perfectly. He's got very varied output. Interesting. Oh, might not be. It might be a different rider. Sorry, that's Killian van der Biel. But again, WoW seem to be taking a bit of control at the front. Galaxy are marking them closely, as are Dirt and a few of the Hisp riders. Looking back on the group, it's all very tight at the front. You see it's starting to really stretch out. A couple of riders gone off the back already here, but it's the next section that's really the killer. As you see it just stretching out. You see the difference. Some riders here are pushing quite a lot. You see Chris from Dirt here pushing 4 watts per kilo, where other down 2.5, just getting the recovery in while they can. This is where it's make or break. This push here, this is it. People kicking up a little bit slow on the front then. No one really going crazy yet. You see one of his teammates here pushing hard, getting the red numbers, but it's not really taken off. It's easy to say that while watching. 6-7 watts per kilo isn't this easy effort that people can just put out, but these riders are capable of more. They can get into the red numbers here and really light it up. This is a bit more of a managed effort. They're working hard, but they're not blowing their tops off yet. And you can see how teams are working together. A couple of the Galaxy riders there, a couple of the Hisp, all just making sure they've got a nice little bunch there, watching for any moves up the road. Importantly though, they're saving their watts. They're not all just going to the front. See Hisp pushing quite hard, a couple of their riders working again through the steep sections. But it's all about communication here, which is very easy to say when you're not doing the work and when you can actually breathe. Having a DS on this course can be invaluable for a lot of teams, being able to say, you know, your fourth rider's a few seconds back, stop doing so much work on the front, relax. So a bit of a split forming here, probably around 20th. See Forsberg from SZ just making it across, but Spilar, Talent Fry, just stuck in that gap, and a couple of Cryogen riders behind, possibly trying to close it. It's important there, we go from Spilar, the Talent Fry rider, just jumping across hard. And now is where it's going to count, seeing who has riders in the front group. And more importantly, who has 4 riders in the front group, because that's what it's going to come down to. You can see, wow, Belgian team look like they do. Not sure quite what's going on there. It's Galaxy Riders. Okay, so that's someone else in Galaxy Kit. It looks like Dirt also have 4 or 5 riders in that front group. It's very good for them. HISP only seem to have 3 though. And so this is the key point where they should be sitting up now. Those 3 HISP riders should be dropping back and helping their 4th team member. Because by being in that front group, they're automatically going to increase the pace on the downhill. And currently it should just be a straight battle now between Wow, Belgian team, and Down and Beastly for Dirt. Wow, pushing the pace severely over the top. Really leading out, but the Dirt riders are just comfortable enough sitting in, and then they all seem, I wouldn't say relaxed and easy, but none of them are right towards the back, really struggling to keep on. So you want the HISP riders starting to drop back now. We've already lost another one who's dropped back to the group, as you see Molina and Da Silva. So that's very good tactics from them. Remager, their teammates, also doing the same. And they just need to slowly make their way back to their rider, back down the road. From the looks of things, the only team with their 4th rider, oh, I take it back, Galaxy, have 4 riders in the front group as well. Just one in the Neokyo kit. You might be able to see him moving up, see if I can jump on him. Is it McGibbon? No. It's Van Wyn. He's in the Neokyo kit, who's with Galaxy, so they have 4 riders. Another team to watch out for in this front group. So you've got 3 teams together in this front group, which is going to be important because that's more riders who want to push, want to keep the other teams away. See the HISP riders just making it back. But down the road we have this nice big bunch here of the Cryogen with 4 riders in it, so that's going to be very much in their favour to start pushing the pace here. No other teams have their 4th rider there as far as I can tell. L'Equip will have their 4th just a little bit back down the road on the WoW riders with no real incentive to push. Bowles is a big surprise there, being seemingly dropped up there where they had an issue. But you'd expect to see him much closer to the front, especially for an A+. On a climb that definitely suits him. He's a very experienced rider. So go back to the front group. So this is going to be important. No one's really pushing the pace out here. And this is kind of the key point. With a group, you have a significant speed advantage on the downhill. It's something that's tried to be reduced a little bit. And may have been. The jury's still out. You can look at Zwift Insider articles for an updated kind of stats and testing on Pack Dynamics 4. But it definitely hasn't worked as perfectly as Zwift might have been wanting, although probably not that we should be expecting, in terms of slowing group speeds. So looking at this front group, we have about 20 riders, I think 18 riders there in it, and then a bit of a chase group. See, it's all come back together now with those HISP riders jumping on, though they seem to be dropping further back, so it seems like their 4th rider. Sev is back here with Forsberg of SZ, and there's another bit of a group behind them. So it's all quite broken up. If you look on the mini-map, you can see there's lots of little bunches, and importantly, they'll all want to kind of get back together. This group of Cryogen riders is going to want to really push the pace. 20 seconds back now to that lead group. It's definitely catchable if they're working hard, and that'll put them in contention for the win as a team. But equally, if they're just going to end up 4th and not going to make that jump, they're going to want to hold off the likes of HISP and the Quick Provence, who are going to be chasing them down. So going back to the lead group, seem to have a little bit of attack from some of the Belgian riders. But they have sat up again, not quite sure what was going on then. We didn't see much of this earlier, and one tact I thought we might see possibly more of is a couple of riders heading up the road, just 1 or 2 guys. when you've got 4 in the front group, you know, maybe have more options in terms of working, but if 2 riders can sneak off, there's not really much incentive to chase, possibly even if you have 3 riders sneak off. I mean, I think it's probably hard to say sneak off with 3 riders, but you can send 1, 2, 3 up the road, and teams don't necessarily have to chase you down, and because of that they might not. And so there's a possibility to get away, and then you could leave your best sprinter in the pack just to sit in. Well, I say sprinter, it's an uphill finish, but you know, punchiest rider with good 5-minute fitness, or 3 minutes for some of these guys up this climb. And so they could just let them sit in, have confidence, whereas there's riders who may not quite have that punch, can just sneak off and go for a long attack, with people maybe not wanting to chase them down. So a couple of dirt riders taking to the front, and this is where it really plays dividends, having more riders taking part and more in the front group. You see Galaxy have only got 4, WoW have 5, Dirt have 6, and so Dirt and WoW can afford to lose riders, or rather than just losing them, sacrifice them, possibly to push the pace, possibly to keep the group behind off, or even just to chase down any attacks from other teams. And so you might see those teams as we get closer to the KOM going up Harlem Hill reverse, and then Harlem Hill forward again, just doing a few attacks, trying things out, seeing if they can drop anyone off the back. See, the WoW riders pushing across, 5 watts per kilo. It's not going to be enough to get away. No one's really going to be too worried about that. It's when you get above 6, 7 pushing towards the front that you know people are starting to make a serious dig and do something different. For those wondering, Colin here's most likely not on, I don't even know what bike, that's one of the Buffalo bikes. It's just one of those visual Zwift glitches that we tend to find. If you sign up to a pen, jump in it on a bike and then swap, sometimes it doesn't show up for other people. Oh, didn't even know that button existed. So looking back, still 21-second gap. It got down to 19 seconds for a little bit, but it's still holding out. It seems to have lost a couple more riders off this chase group of Cryogen. All those HISP riders have definitely gone back and formed a little group of... So only of 3 at the moment. Oh, 2. They've got 3 more back here. So when they get back together, there'll be 5 riders there. They can see those up ahead of them, though. It's all strung out, this group of L'Equipe Provence. It's turned into a bit of a team time trial now, with little groups of riders from each team all bunching together and trying to work together to chase down this lead group or the other teams. Heading back, we've got this very large lead group, and even without anyone necessarily pushing the pace, it's going to be hard for riders to really catch up unless they go into full dedicated TT mode. You see Chris and stronger riders from Dirt, Big Watts being pushed out there, just taking the front for a little bit, possibly just did a little bit of a pull as we hit another bit of incline. In fact, we hit another bit of decline before the incline. So just get the map on the screen for you again, just so you can see the course. It does wind back and forwards quite a lot. We've got, I wouldn't say a figure 8, because it's figure 8 with an extra loop on top. But it's a bit of a winding course, backwards and forwards, swapping out which loops we're covering today. So you can see on the front group, no one's really working too hard. Taking a kind of look at the average powers so far from this lead bunch of riders, looking at about 3.7. Some riders are a bit higher, some of the A+s, like Lagerman here from Sisu, is at 4.4 average. But most of the rides, looking at 3.8 or so far, down to 3.5. And so, some of these are working hard, and there are quite a few Bs in this group. So for them, it's hard work. It's not necessarily well, it is threshold if we're going technical terms, but they're not at their threshold. They're not struggling to hold on. They're definitely doing a bit more work than they'd like to, and a bit more than it looked like. And so again, this whole section until we hit Harlem Hill again is all about recovery. See a couple of attacks here, all little pushes on the front, possibly to keep the pace up. Might not be the wisest to be doing this on a downhill, even if there is a chase group coming. So the best kind of tactics for keeping away is just working hard on the climbs earlier. Sitting up on the flats, letting the group pace carry you a little bit, but getting recovery, and then just attacking on these climbs. So there's more than enough of them to do damage. And you know you have an advantage because those riders couldn't hold on who've been dropped on the punchier sections. So you're going to have that punch advantage over them. You want to let them tire themselves out by working hard on the flats and the downhills, while you just instantly take that time on these little climbs. And it's been a solid effort there from the front, from the Wow rider. But it's going to instantly mark. They were doing 6s and 7s consistently, just stretching out on this incline. But it's going straight into a downhill. And so riders don't have to kind of really worry. Lots of riders haven't even reacted as the group stayed quite far back. A couple of riders just getting a bit caught out on the back there possibly. Maybe not paying full attention. And it's quite easy just to kind of let a little gap open up. Not notice the percentage increasing if you've got your trainer difficulty turned all the way down. And then instantly have that 5-10 metre gap and be well gone by the bottom of the downhill. See Granlund from SZ dropping himself back now, whether it was a purposeful drop to help his teammates out, or he's just decided that, you know, enough's enough. He's struggling, can't hold on. Couldn't cope at that climb. So here we go. Well, that was the Harlem Hill downhill. This is where the real kind of kick is, as I call it, the Harlem Hill reverse. We've got 2 bends. It's nice and aggressive. It's all about holding this entry speed. We're already at 55. It's going to probably drop down a little bit before we get into the big numbers. But up here we want to see red numbers from riders herding the field. Like see Dirt just doing a little bit more work. And there we go. Right on cue. Red numbers from all of them. You can see them all working towards the front. And it's a great place for them to attack. Because as a team, you've got plenty of opportunity to grind out. It's not just a short up and over climb. As you can see on the mini-map, it flattens out over the top. There's a slight downhill, but then into a long extended climb. So any gaps opening up hard. And for a team like Dirt, they're all very punchy riders. And so it's a good opportunity to catch other teams out, possibly cause their 4th, 5th, 6th riders to get into some kind of trouble. You see Ali from Dirt there again, struggling a little bit towards the back. Gibbons behind, looked like we've caught a couple of the Galaxy riders. And one of the CC riders who's just holding on, Lagerman. Been doing quite a bit of extra work than possibly you needed to. But it hasn't quite created the separation needed, especially with the new pack dynamics. I think this will come back together. Might be good to see a few more kicks in the middle of this. When you get this kind of stretched out tail, lots of riders just ease back together, and that's all well and great when you're helping out your teammates behind, but when you know you don't, it can be really beneficial just to kick really aggressively to close that gap and stop the other riders having a wheel, taking advantage of a draft to get back to that lead group. So as we talked about, we've got this kind of little lull now between Harlem Hill in this direction, and then when we do on the second lap, Harlem Hill in the other direction. And this time riders should be on ZwiftPower if they've got another screen or a DS, checking out the opposition around them, seeing what their strengths, what their weaknesses, what their 4th or 5th rider is capable of doing, and seeing if they can beat that and where they're going to do it. You know, if you look around, you see that, you know, if you're Dirt and you see that Wow of a rider with not a very big sprint, you know that you want to really attack the kickers, trying to drop him on them by going super aggressively as they just did then. Let's say you're Wow, you know you've got a lot of 5.0 watt per kilo riders, big fitness, you just want to be consistently pushing their pace, possibly sacrificing one of your riders to keep that pace high and tire out these Dirt riders who are substantially Cat B riders. Some very borderline ABs, at least in the old system. But definitely not some of the big A's that we see with some of the other teams in this front group. One thing to note, it looks like the CC rider just up the road is riding solo. I don't think he's got any other teammates riding today, which is a bit sad. Disappointing, but good that he's turned up and putting an effort in. So importantly for him, he could be the wild card. And other teams, if they've noticed that, it'll be good to kind of keep a track of. He hasn't dropped back, and that's what I was checking out. You know, the ideal tactic here is if you don't have 4 in that front group, drop back, help a teammate out. So help your 4th rider out, and so you get over the line together. See all the other teams There is one rider in a black kit there. Not quite sure who that is. If someone's... Oh, it's Talent Fry rider, Spielau. Not sure if they're riding for different teams. They seem to be the only rider there for their team again as well. But everyone else is on teams with a fourth rider here, so they're working together, trying to get their fourth rider over as quickly as possible. And that's what we saw with HISP. They made the decision they were all going to drop back over the KOM. So these two single riders could be wild cards here. They're going to be wanting to go for that individual win. They're not really fighting for anything else. And so it's worth keeping an eye out for when they might attack, what they might do. And if you get a chance to send a rider up the road with them, it's one less that you have to worry about. And you can focus on who you need to beat for the fourth man over the line. Taking a look back at the chase group, I haven't cut back too much. That gap's been slowly opening up. It's not been any kind of big jump. We've seen HISP join on with the Cryogen team there. But again, it's almost one of the downsides. And sometimes, you know, it's worth having a bigger group. It's always good to have a bigger group in terms of pure speed. But sometimes when you just have two teams like this, it can be quite damaging in terms of any chase efforts. Because you're always aware, oh, well, you know, if I work on the front, and one of their riders is sitting in, that's an advantage for them. So you're kind of always not wanting to do too much on the front. You want to keep the pace up, but not put any huge digs unless the other team's willing to respond. And with a lot of people on Zwift nowadays play it out very tactically and will just sit in the entire time, not doing any work on the front to save their legs. And so it's a difficult conundrum. When you have three teams, sometimes it's kind of diversified out a bit more. There are definitely going to be riders who can push, and you're not just in this one-on-one fight that we see here. See so many riders here just getting to the front and then easing off. These riders can definitely do 5 watt kilo turns on the front, especially with 8 of them, but you can't get any coordination and no one wants to be the person doing all that work, especially with only 4 riders per team up here. A bit further back, looks like one of the quick riders just slightly in front. Then we've got the SZ team. I think we've got 4... Oh, we've had a Söderberg dropping back. Yep, we do have 4 SZ riders, then 4 equip riders. So again, we form these 2 little bunches. It's going to be a tight chase between them. So again, this is where Cryogen and HISP need to be looking back as well. See him just being a bit aggressive as we come into the start-finish banner. Now, this isn't going to be the finish for the actual race itself, but it's the common start-finish banner on this course. And it's where you can do a lot of damage. It's a very long and relatively steep climb compared to some of the others on this course, and afterwards you have this long gradual climb. It doesn't just ease off, so if you can carry speed over, it really helps the group going over. And you see this group catching a lot of time up by being a bit more aggressive here. It's gone from a 35-second advantage down to 25-second. So by HISP doing a lot of work there. See all 4 of them towards the front, possibly of noticing the Cryogen trying to push a weakness, trying to hurt them. Or they might just be trying to stay away from this chase group of SZ and L'Equipe Provence. And going a bit further back, we have some more of the WoW riders. And those kind of solo riders, the 6th, 7th, 8th riders of each team. And then we've got the Watt Fabric guys just working together, picking up any riders who have fallen off the back. But that gap's just a little bit too big now. I don't think they're going to be chasing that down anytime soon. So we're going to head back to the front group to continue on this climb. That gap's coming down bit by bit. It looks around 19 seconds. And from what I was mentioning earlier, I think 20 seconds is really your comfortable gap when you go into that KOM. Now, 20 seconds is a huge amount of time. And for the vast majority of riders, there's no way another team will catch up, especially the level of these riders in the front group. But any kind of mechanical issue, anyone struggling, and that 20 seconds could be enough to bridge across. And so if you can hold that 20-second gap, it's also a bit of a confidence boost. See, it's really coming down now as Cryogen take a bit of a turn on the front. And these riders are really sending it using this long incline to chase down that gap. Still an advantage this front group with more numbers. We've got a bit of a long downhill which will play into their favour. We have one of the Galaxy riders calling for them to work, trying to convince others. And this is where maybe some of the kind of league standings come into it a little bit. As we saw earlier, we've got Dirt currently up in first place, followed now with Cryogen behind them, then WoW, the Belgian team, then Galaxy, HISP. And so for these front riders, it's really Galaxy and WoW fighting out between them. I'd expect WoW, the Belgians, to actually be up there competing for first in this series, in this group. And there's some of the favourites. They've won previous races, I think the previous series, in this kind of competition back when it was separate cats. And so I think Dirt will be watching out a bit more for this WoW team than they will for the Galaxy team. And likewise, Galaxy might be fighting more the teams chasing them down, seeing if they can get that advantage over Cryogen and HISP. So for them, it's really going to be a case of just doing a bit more work on the front to keep away, which is why you'll see the messages from them. They might be getting a little bit frustrated of constantly being towards the front. But it's how it ends up. You're looking around. If you're Dirt here, you know you're the current first in the league. Your main opposition is this WoW team. They're with you. HISP down the road, you know, they're close, but maybe they don't count them as a big, big threat. And so all they've got to do is just sit in, let others do the work. If the others catch, it still plays in their favour. And if they don't catch, then that's fine as well. So they can just rest up. And that's where their tactics really come into this. See a lot of frantic Discord chats going. As we heard earlier, people trying to work out what's the best way to plan this, what's the best way to go as we approach Harlem Hill for the second time. So 32.5 kilometres, or the 0.4 is the final finish line. We hit the bottom of the KOM again at around 30 kilometres. So we've got about 5 kilometres to go with this horrid climb coming up between now and then. Yeah, we saw Dirt attacking on the punchy section earlier, on the Harlem reverse section. You have to see if we see it again here, trying to possibly drop WoW's 5th rider. And that gap to the group behind just ease back out. We've got 19 seconds. And they want to really send it into this base here. Lots of the times the teams up the front are just going to go for those really aggressive sections where they can do the most damage, where they want to be really punchy so they can get round this bend and go for a 15-second punch up at the front, whereas those chase riders can maybe do a full minute effort. It's going to hurt them a bit for later, but the key for them if they want to improve their position is to catch those up the road. It looks like one of the HISP riders had a dropout from Majo, so that's going to be really frustrating for them. And as their 4th rider, I'm not sure what they're really planning at the moment, whether they've noticed, whether they've communicated, or they're just hoping. I'm not quite sure. Possibly they think he's not going to recover from this and it's going to be too far back for them to go and get on hold of another rider. But ideally, as a team, tactically, they should be really pushing up now, trying to break the team behind, or then just ignoring them and sitting back, dropping all the way back to their teammate. The reason I'd suggest, them attacking is because they've got nothing to lose if that is their final rider, and they're not going to drop all the way back to someone miles, 2-3 minutes back. They might as well use this kind of unsettled part. Cryogen will be thinking, why are they not dropping back? They might be expecting them to drop back. So they can use this opportunity to attack, get up the road, break away from Cryogen, see if they can get back across that front group who have been eking out the gap even further over the top there and into the downhill. Looking back at the front group, there wasn't anything crazy happening then. Saw some red numbers, but nothing that would drop the riders who have managed to make it over this far with the leaders. So you won the dirt rides, just starting to eke out the pace here. It's 4.4, 4.5, doesn't look crazy, but when you see the watts being done, you start to realise, wow, why? He's one of the heavier riders on that dirt team. So perfect for just kind of pushing the pace up, causing others to have to work harder. And possibly need to react. This is where, less than 3 kilometres now to go to the base of the climb. You have 6 riders, or for the likes of WoW, you have 5 riders. You need to think, is anyone not going to get over? Start communicating about it. And if they're not going to get over, it's worth possibly sacrificing them, just sending them up the road in a breakaway, seeing if anyone bothers to follow, and then having them just stop totally, or just ease back, leaving a rider from the other team solo up the front, having done loads of hard work. Potentially being liable to blow up totally as the group comes through. We've still got the likes of Spieler and Lagerman from Sisu and Talent Fry just sitting in that front group. Definitely ones to watch out for. Personally, if I was them, I might have gone for a bit of a long attack here. Got over the top of Harlem Hill and then just gone really long. See if you can gain some ground here. His team's now going to just be thinking about resting up or trying something. And, you know, we find it a lot in races and series where you know the opposition really well, or you kind of know what to expect from them. Teams will just sit up, and if it's not their opposition, they'll just let them go away. They don't necessarily need to do crazy numbers to do it. See, Lagerman and Sisu pushing 5.5s and 6s there. Not taking too much ground because you started at the front. And you want to build your speed through the group. So no one around him was really doing above 2-3 watts per kilo. And it shows how much of a difference there is being on the front of the pack. See Van Wyn from Galaxy just moving forward a bit. And there's still a little bit of time to get a gap over the group. You know, with most of this KOM being these punchy climbs, if you can get 10 seconds or so solo, that's enough to manage the kind of the surge of the group when they hit the base of that climb and give you a little bit of a head start up it. After that, there's so little draft here that it doesn't make much difference being in the group or not. And looking down the road, 26 seconds now the gap. It's the chase groups, and that's not going to be closed down. See that gap group with SZ and Liquip well back as well, another minute down. So it looks like it's going to be fairly processional for Watt Fabric at the back. They're not going to make that group gap up. And we can have SZ, Swedish Swift Riders, and Liquip Provence fighting between the two of themselves for those places. And then Hisp and Cryogen for 4th and 5th. On the podium, it's going to be between Galaxy, Down and Beastly, and Wow. So the approach, we've got about 5 kilometers left to go. It's all about the recovery. You see the riders just instantly down to 2 watts per kilo. They're on the downhill. They're just resting up as much as possible. They know what's coming up. They know what needs to be done. It's just a case of sending it up. Unlike earlier, it's not kind of one team that's clearly there and up the road. So it's going to be a real punch out here. I'll try and watch a bit of the front, but the real kind of importance is 4th rider over the line. So apologies to whoever wins the race if I don't cover it, or those podium riders. But it's all about the team effort here. It's a team racing series, and that 4th rider over the line is what really counts. See Galaxy just moving a bit towards the front. See a few people reacting. Again, this is kind of the worst time to be at the front. You want to be starting the base of this climb at the back of the group. Using this kind of draft of those coming through is when you hit the base of a climb, those riders at the front get the double whammy of hitting all that wind and then having the speed drop significantly, whereas those coming from behind maintain their speed for longer and get significant advantage up the climb, covering a lot more distance by holding onto their speed and momentum longer. So those who have just done hard work to be at the front end up even further back because of it. And it's all about sitting in. See the experienced riders just moving towards the back, like John Paul, Luge, Colin Raymond, Ali, all just sitting back, not doing anything at the front, staying comfortable, saving their legs. So here we go. We've got the first part through the tunnels. Again, we're just going to see it stretch out fractionally, but nothing crazy will go on here. Again, riders will be very aware now. What do they want to turn this into? Do they want it to be a long 5-minute grind? Which maybe the likes of Wow would favour them, possibly Galaxy. Or do they want it to be this short, punchy effort? And I think Wow are going to be one of the stronger teams here. I feel like they cover both bases. They've got a lot of punchy riders. And generally possibly the stronger team of the 3 over 20 minutes, but again, only having 5 riders to dirt 6 could really come into play, especially if anyone's struggling for them. You see them just leading the pace here, Again, this is the kind of thing that really doesn't play into your favour. If they're leading the pace here, they need to fully break away. Just leading out the other teams doesn't help you at all, because your fourth rider is going to be doing just as much work as their first, second, third and fourth rider. So if you're going to do it, you want to fully send up the roads. You're hitting the hard sections here. So we start to see the pace pushing up again to the 7s at the front. See Chris just marking it there. And some of the Galaxy Riders, 3 of the Galaxy Riders towards the front. 4 of the Dirt Riders, 3 of the WoW. There's a couple of people from that chase group. Just take a little look. Some of the Hisp Riders really sending up. You can see in the distance that lead group. They're just breaking away. But again, it's about that 4th rider of Hisp who's already dropped back. So again, they're just going all in. And that was the difference. This first group didn't want to push too hard on that initial section. And so people chasing down could make a lot of time, as we saw with Hisp. So here we go. This is the long section coming up. Again, riders just sitting up, getting some recovery in. And looking at the number of riders, it's probably going to come down to a sprint finish for those 4th places. Everyone's still quite connected. The pace hasn't gone absolutely nuts yet. See, it's starting to go into the red numbers now. And this is where we're going to see riders going solo up the road. See the rider from WoW here. But again, they're just sitting up. And, you know, they can't do any more to help their team here. They need to fully send it, break away the draft, and just get up the road. You know, there's a few team tactics possibly here, but it's pretty much just a straight punch out. Whose 4th rider can do the most? See, little breaks starting to form. Got 3 riders just struggling towards the back. 1 of the Dirt Riders down the road. Not quite sure who on the Tron, on the pink Tron is there. I think it's Van Wim from Galaxy. So that's Galaxy's 4th rider out. And so we're down to 2 teams now competing for the win. We've got Dirt with Snowy there just struggling towards the back, but they have 4 riders towards the front on this last bit of incline pushing hard. And then we've got WoW. Again, they have 4 riders in here. The last rider, Bogart's here, just struggling a little bit. That gap in front of him is just opening up. And this is where maybe their team could help a little bit. Your team tactics come into a bit of play where they just want to eke back and just slow down. There's no point in them pushing the pace here. They've got to get this 4th rider over. And so you see them, all 3 riders there, heading towards the back as Dirt push the pace on the front. Seeing Chris really going aggressively, and he's got nothing to lose here. The Dirt riders can just send it and do as much as they can here. We've got WoW riders just eking back, but that little gap is going to hurt them. See 2 more of them. Ryan Cutsum starting to come through, helping out his teammate. But it's going to take a big effort from him to get back on now. See the Dirt riders are starting to send it at the end. Chris going Spielauer, trying to chase him down. And there we go. WoW have got to start to sprint now. They've got to commit hard if they want to get back on. It's going to be a full sprint effort. See Luge, 4th rider here for Dirt, going over it. Looks like Spielauer's going to take it for Talent Fry. Vanden and Beale's going to maybe get 2nd for WoW, but that's not the key here. It's about that 4th rider over the line. It looks like maybe John Poole for Dirt's going to take it here. Just driving through. They did the work early. Got a little chase behind him, but they're not going to make it. The WoW riders are really working hard, but they just let it go just a bit too early. See Dirt there coming through for 1st place. See Van Cutsum there pushing hard. He'll be the 4th rider over for WoW, beating out the Galaxy riders who got dropped down the road. See Van Wim is going to come through here for 3rd place for them. And as we said, the Hisp riders there coming through, pushing hard, and that 20 seconds just instantly evaporates if someone has a blow up and they're really struggling. Because it's such an aggressive climb, it's really important to carry your speed in. So big credit to those Hisp riders for putting in the effort. You know, they had a drop out on their 4th rider. There's not much you can do, but at least they've worked hard and shown, you know, they're capable of being in there. They're capable of fighting with the top teams. And that's where they want to be, is come back to Cryogen now, who are going to come through for 4th place. Yeah, for them, they can just kind of cruise through. They've got it nailed down now. They don't need to worry too much. So then dropping back, we've got this battle between L'Equip and SZ. You see it breaking up a little bit in this again. It's where team tactics really come into play. SZ have sent 2 riders up the road, 2 at the back, struggling on. There's no point in them pushing the pace here. If their riders towards the back aren't able to hold it or are struggling, see Granland here just put a little kick in and he dropped his rider behind, and that's going to hurt them. That's their 4th rider on the road and they've just dropped it. Their own teammate. Sad to see. But you know, it happens. You're struggling, you're not paying full attention. or your fourth rider just can't hold on. Maybe it could have been a case it didn't matter what Granlund did there. He wouldn't have held up, but it's going to be the Quip coming through here for 5th place, I believe. I can't see any Hisp riders. Oh, there we go. The Hisp riders right at the back of that Watt Fabric pack. So that's going to be, it's going to be the Quip there coming through 4th place. Swedish Zwift riders in 5th. And then we've got this little fight between Watt Fabric and Hisp. That one Hisp rider, Romeo, versus all 4 of the Watt Fabric guys. Maybe the Watt Fabric guys possibly won't know. It's going to be very hard for them to keep track of everything. So they might not know that they're in a bit of a battle for a position here. So they might have thought, all race have been sat there. And that's why it's so important to keep pushing throughout. It's 11 seconds there. If they'd gone a bit harder earlier, maybe they could have made it. Maybe they were going flat out the entire time. But it's why it's so important you keep working in these races. Because every point counts, even in a race like this. So there we go. We've got Essed coming over the line. Will be 5th place. It's going to be followed by Hisp rider, just taking a few more places there, working really hard. And he may not know it. Well, it's great to see him putting this effort. He can just roll through. All he needs to do is beat the Watt Fabric riders behind their 4th rider. He's a good 2 minutes back now, I think, Rayner, unless there's another one I haven't spotted. But a great performance from him, and commiserations for the dropout. It's a tough one, there's not much you can do about it. But he stood up well and got back on it and tried everything he could, overtaking those final group of riders. So I'm going to be following the EMEA West Gold 1 next. So we're just going to quickly cut over to the results for you of this race, just so you can take a little look before we jump on to that race. See what we have on ZwiftPower. I think most of the results you should be able to tell now. Oh, and we've got actual results up, which is very good. So there we go. So we saw Christian Spielauer, Talentfrei, taking the individual win, followed by Kilian van den Abeel, a renowned racer, in 2nd. And then we have those 4 dirt riders, Luge, Colin Raym, Chris and John Poole, rounding it up to take the win for the team. Then WoW just finishing it out with Wim van Cutsem in 10th, being their 4th rider, followed by Galaxy with Peter van Vim in 18th. Then Cryogen, Le Quip Provence, SZ, and then it'll be Hisp, followed by Watt Fabric. Thanks very much for joining. And if you want, just check out the other live stream, which is going to cover the Gold 1 race on the same course next. Thanks for joining.